This is the second in our series of 4 short videos on how you will be using the legal system and lawyers. And the topic of this one is 5 things to stay away from. These are 5 things that are likely to hurt you, your children, the relationships in your family, in fact, your entire family. Keep an eye out about trying to avoid these 5 things. I think you're going to do much better. The first thing to avoid, and this should make you happy, is large attorney fees. Large attorney fees. You know, there's an old European curse that used to say you should be worth your weight in gold, and that shouldn't be enough to pay your doctor bills. Well, a little bit of the same here. I mean, would we think that a year of good health is a year where we spent $300,000 on medical expenses and surgeries and so forth? Probably not. Well, the same thing about spending $200,000 or $300,000 or maybe even $20,000 or $30,000 that you don't need to spend on your divorce. There are very few things that can be done in a divorce in terms of incurring attorney fees that are going to be better because we do a lot of it. If somebody says, hey, I just put a $200,000 addition on my house, you'd say, wow, that's got to be something. I'd like to come see that. But if somebody says, you know, I just spent $200,000 getting divorced, the chances that came without a great cost would be terrific. Let me tell you very quickly 3 reasons to keep attorney fees down. Number 1, you need your funds. It's a rare case where people are so wealthy that they can go from 1 home to 2, double so many of their expenses. The kids need 2 beds, the kids need 2 rooms, you have 2 sets of taxes, you have 2 sets of utilities, you have 2 mortgages and so forth, and that the family doesn't feel a huge financial pinch. You and your children need you to be careful about your money. A second reason is there's very little chance that if we unleash a lot of extra attorney fees and attorney hours in a divorce case, even if the attorneys are acting in good faith and with good intentions, there's very little chance that anything good is coming from that. A lot of mischief can get started. And this relates to the third thing, which is that you are at great risk of turning personal issues and mom and dad issues into legal issues. And being badly hurt by that if you are spending too much money on attorneys and on legal proceedings. Is how you're going to divide Christmas vacation a legal issue, or is it a mom and dad issue? It's obviously a mom and dad issue. And if you're suing each other or even, you know, using aggressive legal correspondence between your attorneys, expensively by the way, to try to solve those things, you're probably getting further from where you want to be. Is it a legal issue or is it a mom and dad issue? Who's going to be doing 50% or 70% or 62.3% of the driving to pick up and drop off the kids? Virtually all the issues you are facing, all of them, are mom and dad issues and husband and wife issues. They are not legal issues. So for all 3 of those reasons, be very, very careful about incurring a lot of attorney fees. The second thing to avoid is any rash decisions, anything that has to be done quickly. And it's funny, I guess this is part of our hurt, or it's our attempt to get control of a situation that we feel out of control with, that people start saying, well, I've got to do this right away. I've got to go hire the most aggressive lawyer. I've got to buy another house. I've got to sell this house. I've got to attack this person. I've even had people who did not want the divorce, but the spouse filed for a divorce, who will call up and they'll say, well, what does this know? What happens then? All right, well, I hear there's a 60-day waiting period. Can we get this done in 60 days? And I'm thinking, my goodness, you know, I guess that's human nature, though. This person doesn't even want a divorce, but in sort of an attempt to get control of it, they want it done absolutely as quickly as possible. Be careful of any rash decisions. This is a time for calm. I heard a counselor say once that one of the poorest adages that we have in our society in terms of helping people is that desperate times call for desperate measures. And he said, you know what, it's just the opposite. Desperate times call for a little bit of status quo, a little bit of slowing down and connecting with our more rational sides and with outsiders who can make it possible for us to make better decisions. The third thing to avoid is excessive reliance on court, law, and legal rights. These things are going to get you only so far and sometimes not to a very good place. So what do I mean by that? Because in our society, we say, well, we got to arm people up. We got to give legal representation. We got to let these people know their legal rights so that they can, well, maybe not. Why? Because a couple of reasons. Number 1, if you're using court or aggressive attorneys who are sending a lot of fiery correspondence between each other that you guys are reading, this is likely to add to the problems rather than lessen them. And you could ask anybody who's ever been to court. My friend Judge George Beamer has made the observation that after 38 years on the bench, he's concluded that almost none of the thousands and thousands of family cases that he presided over should have been there. What an awful thing to kind of have to say. Is, you know, I presided over these things and almost none of them should have happened. But people always feel worse afterwards. We've never had a couple say, you know, going to court left us feeling better about each other, left us relating better, left us cooperating better. So be careful about that. But you even have to be careful about relying on law. Just to know what the law is, it's fine to use that as a data point, but keep in mind, law is about minimums. So if I say I have a right for you to pay me $100 a week, well, and so you better do it, this probably puts you in sort of a defensive position. It's fine to know, well, that's kind of what the law's guideline is. Somebody might want to be more generous if they aren't like forced and told that you have to do that. Plus, once we're forced and we're told that's what it is, then we come to think that's all I should ever have to pay. And if the kids need $110 in a particular week, well, that's illegal for you to ask for more than that. You can't raise kids on a minimum of anything. My friend Dr. Shay Daly and I published an article in 2009 that was in our State Bar Journal, and we point out in there that if we relied on the law, which means these minimums, to raise our children, we would have the first generation of minimally loved, minimally educated, minimally medically cared for, minimally fed, minimally nurtured, you know, in the world. It would be the sickest generation of kids ever. So be careful about relying on the law just for that reason. Your legal rights mean the absolute bottom. Take a look, one other thing, take a look at the video that we did on all the legal rights that you have if you want to exercise all your legal rights. You and your co-parent have a legal right to stand on the courthouse steps and call each other names. You have a right to ruin every pickup and drop-off. You have a right never to say anything good to your children about their other parent again. You have a right to ruin every single occasion that the family is together. Really, you have all those legal rights. Would you really want to exercise all those legal rights? Obviously not. It wouldn't be good for your children, wouldn't be good for you. So be careful about excessive reliance on those things. It's going to be your love for your children that will save the day, and your wish to build a better future for yourself that will save the day, not your legal rights. The fourth thing to stay away from are custody evaluations. These have become a scourge in family law, and so many families are being harmed by these. You can take a look at an article that we've written about the overuse and the harmfulness of these, but these are basically trials. And they're trials handed over to psychologists. Now, they don't make the final decisions, but they may as well, because they hand these decisions over to the courts. But worst of all, they turn parents against each other. No one going to the custody evaluator tends to want to concede that, gosh, there are all these really good things about my co-parent, and he's a great father in this regard, or she's a wonderful mother in this regard. No, because we're in the state of fear, we have all these horrible things to say about each other. Then we have to read what each has said about that. Plus, usually the kids are snared into these processes, so the poor kids are interviewed, and this leaves them with a sense of responsibility for the family's conflict and a sense of responsibility that they're supposed to fix it. Additionally, you get tested psychologically, and nobody on these comes out looking normal, because the tests are always heavily weighted toward finding, well, what are the problems and so forth, and then everybody, and by the way, in addition, so many psychologists point out, and you could take a look at our paper on this, that actually none of this is even a good predictor of anything that's going on. Your family does not need to know whether one of you is a 4.8% better parent than the other. You're both good enough parents. What the kids need is not a judicial determination or a psychologist determination that one of you is somewhat better at this or better at that. What your children need is a new partnership between the parents that makes you predictable, courteous, cooperative co-parents focused on them. And they need to see you working at your maximum capabilities, not attacking each other. I would stay far, far away from any custody evaluations in almost any divorce. And the fifth and final thing to stay away from is any call to make it complicated. Any call to make it complicated. Well, somebody who's telling you, well, yeah, that might work in other cases. You know, you're going and sitting down and having some hot Coke, or maybe you're going to some counseling and for a couple of sessions for a couple $100 and coming to an agreement or mediation, but not in your case. This is very, very complicated. I want to tell you about an interesting case that I had not long ago, and this was a couple that had been together for some years. Wonderful people, but I wonder about anybody who set them up together, because they really didn't belong together. They just weren't a good match. But terrific people individually. They had a beautiful little daughter. The father happened to be a medical specialist and making about $400,000 a year. The mom was a stay-at-home mom. Then she was going to try to start a business. The mom also was intending to move a couple states away to be near her family, and the father was going to stay here and then maybe try to find work in that area. And they came in a mediation, and for less than a couple $1,000s, they worked out all the issues in their case. All the issues. They had a lot of property to divide. They had a huge difference in their income, $400,000 versus zero. They had somebody moving out of the area. They had a child that they both loved. And yet what they kept saying, and I was saying, you know what, I think you may want to talk to attorneys. I can refer you to the kind of attorneys that I would feel comfortable going to. They kept looking at each other and saying to me, we're not using attorneys. We're not using attorneys. They're among the people in our society who have lost confidence that if you go to an attorney, that you go to attorneys, that you're going to have help reducing conflict, building cooperation, making a better day for yourselves, and taking care of the kids and the relationships in the family. But in any event, they resolved their whole divorce despite all these issues for, you know, less than $2,000. Now, interestingly enough, either one of them, in the hands of somebody who wanted to make it complicated, could be, either one of these parents could hear, what, you're thinking of not doing this without multiple hearings and motions and pleadings and analyses and evaluations? The father could have heard, wait a minute, your wife is going to move away and you're trusting her to support your relationship with your daughter and to make her available? Are you crazy? We've got to get this evaluated. We've got to get you guys to, well, the mother could have heard, what, this guy makes $400,000 a year, you're starting a business, you have no idea. But these people worked this out and had confidence. They were both generous with each other. They were both generous in supporting each other's relationship with this child, both generous, of course, in creating the best world possible for this child to live her childhood and get a good start in life and have lots of access to both and have a good opinion of both and to see the parents working together. So I think you have to be careful. If a couple like that, for almost no money, can work out their issues, I would be very careful about anyone who wants to make your situation complicated, complicated, complicated.